Polly here with Cut at Home. Today I'm going to show you a technique that you can use with any ink pads that you have. You'll need your ink pad, you'll need a brayer, and you will need an embossing folder. I am using a Darice embossing folder that's available at Cut at Home. It's called Scrolls. I'm also going to be using the Dots embossing folder from Darice. This will give you a letterpress effect using an embossing folder and an ink pad. First thing you want to do is get a brayer. This is a speedball brayer. It works really nice. And you want to ink your brayer up really good with your ink. Now I'm using a smaller ink pad because it's the ink that I want to use for the project that I'm making. But the larger the ink pad you have, the easier it's going to be for you to cover your brayer. You want to make sure that you cover it really well with the ink so you get an even coating of ink on the brayer. Once you have your brayer inked, you're going to ink your embossing folder. Now you want to ink the smoother side. You don't want to ink the side that's raised, okay? And just ink your embossing folder really well. Make sure that it looks nice and even. If you get a little bit on the other side, it's not going to matter because that's going to be on the back of your paper. So just make sure you get a nice even coating. So your embossing folder should be nicely coated. The next thing you're going to want to do is cut your paper to fit your embossing folder. You'll want to use a smoother texture paper. You won't really want to use a textured paper because you won't get as nice of results. Unless you want a distressed look, then that might be the look that you want. So you'll place your paper on the uninked side of the embossing folder. Make sure you line it up. And then close your embossing folder carefully. You'll put your embossing folder in between your two plates. I'm using the Big Shot. And I also take an extra piece of cardstock and put it underneath for this because I want this to emboss pretty tight. The ink will transfer better that way. And you might need to pass it through more than once, so you can kind of take a peek at your folder and see how well the ink transferred. I usually go back and forth one time and then I'll take a little peek and see how it transferred. If there's any places that I'd like better, I'll turn the embossing folder and run it through again. And you can play around with this technique. Different inks you'll get better results with. Different papers you'll get better results with. And when you're done, you should have a nice embossed impression like this. Did the same thing with the large embossing folder, the 5x7 dot, but I used white ink for this. And it's a lot more subtle. You can't see the ink too well, but I like how it turned out and it'll look nice on my card. It gives enough of a variation that I like it. And the other thing that's nice about this is it's really easy to clean up. You just run it under water, and since the brayer is rubber and the embossing folders are plastic, the ink comes right off of them in most cases. I do have some staining on my brayer from different inks. It just depends on the ink and the pigment. Now I'm ready to make my card. I cut a card base. This is a 10 by 7 inch sheet of paper scored at 5 to make a 5 by 7 card. I'm making a graduation card, so I'm using the school colors, which are blue and gold. I have my background piece that I used the letterpress technique to create. I cut a piece of blue paper a little larger than my embossed sheet. So I'm going to adhere this together so it has a border. Then I'm going to adhere this on the card. I also, out of the dotted sheet that I used the letterpress technique on, cut little banners out of the Sizzix scalloped banner pennant template. I'm going to use those along with some cuts that I made on my silhouette. And now I'm going to assemble my card. So here's my finished card. As you can see, there's my background that I used the letterpress technique in. Also, the banners that I cut with the dot pattern that I did the letterpress technique with. The class of and the lettering I cut out on my silhouette. So you could use this card for many things. I did a graduation card since it is graduation season, and I do have a graduation coming up. You could do a birthday, just putting happy on the banner, and birthday in the center part is another idea. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Thanks, and happy scrapping.